We're very fortunate today to have a very special addition to a Working Lunch with Nordin, and we've got three important guests with us today to discuss the strategic shift in the food retailing industry and how to participate in that growth story. So, first joining us is Wan Mohammed, Dazrik, Wan Zulkifli. Thank you, Wan, for joining us. We've also got Umar Munshi, who's also joining us. From both of these gentlemen are from Ethis, of course, the very famous crowd platform, and Wan Chi Yun. Thank you, from the co-founder of Baloy, and we're going to learn a bit more about your business and how it's helping the situation with COVID-19, how it's helping get food to people, and how it's helping to reduce the cost of food, and why is that important, and also why is it an important investment opportunity. But before we get into the details, I want everyone to introduce themselves a little bit, and starting with Umar, because he's got the nicest beard amongst us, and he's a well-known celebrity, and gets quite a bit of media attention as well. So Umar, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on with Ethis.
Thank you, Nordin. Glad to be here on the show. Quick introductions, I guess. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur for quite a long time, from when my beard was very short and with no white hairs until today. So about 20 years. And in the past few years, I've dedicated myself to advancing impactful finance, ethical finance, Islamic finance, and entrepreneurship, from the technology perspective, or from the entrepreneurial startup perspective as well. So that's I would say, a little bit about my business background. Personal background: I was born, raised in Singapore. Found it very challenging in terms of being able to be a creative entrepreneur in Singapore, an impactful entrepreneur in Singapore. So I spent some time in Indonesia. I was there for about 6 years. I was in Saudi for about a year. And now I've settled down in Malaysia for about 4 years. And so far, I think I'm happy to be settled here, although at this point, we don't really have a choice in terms of moving around. Yeah. So Ethis is what I founded with a friend 6 years ago now. And in the past 6 years, we've done a lot of things. And to just simplify it, we essentially help companies and projects get funding. And on the other side, we help investors get access to these opportunities. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we're glad that you're here in Malaysia, and we're glad that you're doing the hard work of helping companies get the funds that they need to expand. Now, Wan, you're also driving a lot of the business here in Malaysia. Could you tell us a bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you, Nordin, and the rest. First and foremost, thank you for having me and the team here over lunch to speak a bit or share a bit about the stuff that we do in Malaysia. Broadly speaking, I think Umar have mentioned about the essence or the existence of Ethis in Malaysia. I think we are one of the recognized market operator under security commissions that enable us to do equity crowdfunding. And I guess our ethos here is really about circulate good to the real economy. One being, I think Islamic values is one that we uphold true and true. And alhamdulillah, on that note, I think we are one of a very few Sharia compliant equity crowdfunding platform, or rather crowdfunding platform generally in Malaysia. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that we do here is actually trying to help in the current context, businesses, startups, small medium enterprises to scale and grow through investment opportunity or fundraising opportunities. Very broadly, at this point of time, I know it is quite challenging period when we speak about the social economy context in Malaysia, whether it's political instability, downturn in the economy and stuff like that. A lot of businesses are struggling. And I guess the question here is about sustenance, but also beyond sustenance is about scaling. I think in Malaysia specifically, when we speak about investment opportunities or business opportunities. Currently, we double down on 4 verticals, so to speak, or industries. Startups and SMEs, that's the conventional one that we look at, and I think Mr. Yen can share more in terms of what he does with regards to food securities and retailing, retailing industry. So that's one. Secondly, an extension to food securities is with regards to agriculture and also agri-tech. I think a lot of businesses, farmers, employabilities, food securities are needing more resource to sustain and to scale, and that's where we are looking at as well. Thirdly, is with regards to the halal and circular economy, and this is where we see a lot of enterprises or businesses, or rather social enterprises, who come into the play, whereby it's not just about profiteering, money value, but also the return to stakeholders, not necessarily shareholders specifically, but stakeholders. That's something that we also wanted to support when we speak about circulate good. And lastly, it is something that we try to emulate in Malaysia. It's in progress. It's with regards to social housing, specifically in the property sector. Just to share with everyone, we have done this in Indonesia over the last couple of years, and alhamdulillah, it has been good. So that's something that we try to emulate and replicate in Malaysia. And I think that will benefit the society at large when we are able to deploy that. Yeah. So broadly speaking, that's what Ethis do. We are a crowdfunding platform in Malaysia. But on top of that, it's really about the ethos of circulate good to the real economy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Wan. And it's really interesting to see there's kind of a nice convergence of common interests there in terms of the SME sector, the halal sector, the food sector, the agri-tech, the agriculture, and coming to now to you, Mr. Yan. Tell us a bit about what Baloy is doing, because this is really why we're kind of very excited today to understand what's going on with your business and why is it going to grow so fast?
Thank you, Mr. Nordin. Okay, so I think before introducing Baloy, probably let me just introduce myself. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Baloy Sdn Bhd, and again. Okay. Me myself, as an engineer, a professional, entering into business sectors for franchise 20 years back, and even expanded to FMCG essential grocery line 10 years back. So total to be 20 years experience in the franchise industry and 10 years in the FMCG industry. Okay, so all this while for grocery or FMCG, we found that the conventional supply chain that's actually having a lot of problems and also the inefficient. Okay, so that's the reason why that we have come up with the idea whereby we can actually break through all this. Okay, and the name that we choose, Baloy, is actually derived from the word per Baloy, from Malay or Indonesian word. So from the name itself, it tells the essential product we are providing through our platform here is at the lowest price, and yet the quality is assured. Okay, so the pillar concept of Baloy is to we have 2 pillar concepts here. Well, first of all, is online to offline, whereby we provide both channels or options to our end user or customer to purchase their daily needs. Okay, and from the online to offline perspective, in fact, we managed to break through a lot of constraints faced by e-commerce nowadays. So during the pandemic, we do see a lot of players coming into the market for e-commerce, and we found that for developed countries such as Malaysia, so they will definitely play a constraint on the logistic wise as well as the internet. Okay, so this is where online to offline we can actually have to break through it, whereby our customer can actually purchase their daily grocery online and pick up from our nearest store, or choose to deliver from our nearest store to their doorstep. So this definitely increase the efficiency as well as the cost incurred. Okay, and the second pillar concept of Baloy will be consumer to manufacturer. Here in Baloy, we purchase in bulk directly from all the major manufacturers in cash, in fact, to enjoy the lower price, and we bypass all the middlemen and reach out to our end user directly. So in this manner, we manage to provide the essential products at the lowest price, 3 to 10% lower than the market price. Okay, so during this pandemic, we found that this concept is really having a well accepted by the public. First thing first, not only they can enjoy with a lower price, and secondly, also we reduce the risk to be exposed to COVID-19. Okay, during this time. Okay, so that's a okay, so that's the reason why that we have grown so fast for the past 2 years. Okay, and which is now that we are in the midst of expansion, not only in Malaysia but overseas. Okay?
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Jan. And this is one of the things that I think Aisha mentioned. And of course, I'm going to say hi to everyone who's joining us. Grace, Sham, Madeline, and everyone else. Amina, I think, is also joining us. Thank you for joining us today. We've seen this shift to online purchasing. We've seen this shift to like just deliver it to my door. You know, for me, I was also that kind of person. I love to go out shopping, but then you're like, okay, maybe you know there is a better way of doing it. And actually, you save a lot of time, which you can do other work with. But tell us about that trend. Is it going to continue? Is it going to be the future of food retailing here in Malaysia and indeed around the world?
I mean,
over to you, yeah.
I could start, and maybe Mr. Yan could add on again, being in the industry. I think broadly speaking, and then looking back into the stats, I think Malaysian F&B or grocery retail in 2020 was estimated at a value of 71 billion in 2020, and this is expected to expand this year at 75, close to 75 billion this year. And inshallah, you know, there's a projected up to jump of 30% to 90 billion in 2025. So that means there's a CAGR of 10% broadly year on year. And then you rightly put earlier, I think a lot of grocery operators with the current pandemic, you know, lockdown situation in Malaysia, gain more actually, because people are not going out to dining and stuff like that, and people are tend to buy and cook more at home. And this is where I think what Mr. Yan business model or value proposition brings in, because there's this offline to online segment. And I think this trend was still going to continue. You know, where large markets last time, a lot of consumer likes to buy in bulk. But some of the market segment in Malaysia, whether it's the B40 or M40, might not have the propensity to spend in bulk. They might just buy some items on a weekly basis and stuff like that. So this play to the, you know, the retailers, the supermarkets, hypermarkets, or even the mini markets, whereby they can actually provide almost just in-time delivery. And you're right to put, I think the online segment, or rather the offline to online channel is booming. And I think this is what Baloy, or rather the Mr. Yan's team, wanted to capitalize on. And maybe Mr. Yan can share, you know, the value proposition by doing that. They are able to cut some prices down. And yeah, I think Mr. Yan would be the best person to articulate that more than I do.
Great, thanks for that high level analysis, because that's, I think, important to see there is a mega trend that we're looking at. Baloy, Mr. Yan, how is your team getting the job done?
Okay, so our targeting more to the residential area, which is closer to our. So probably saying about stocks is always ready. The essential goods is always ready. They will be able to get the stocks or the goods in a faster manner. Okay? So unlike others, they might take time to deliver from their distribution center. You know, the hub is quite far away. So we do an app whereby the stocks are always ready, replenished on weekly basis, and nearer to our customer. Okay, so these are all our current practice, and we found that by doing this, we can further reduce the operation costs of our outlet, because those shop lots that nearer to the residential area are always usually at the lower rental, so not the prime area. We are not looking on that. Okay, so nearer to the community, and also in terms of parking, it's much more convenient. So let's take, for example, if like we place the order in the morning, they can just pick it up in the afternoon. Once we have get ready the goods, we will notify them. so they can just come drive through, yeah, to pick up goods. Of course, they can always choose to deliver to their doorstep if they want to. There will be a very minimum charge. It means that we are very close to the community. That's our outlets.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, walaikum salam. Hi, Irfan. Thank you for joining us as well. Now, we've got a very interesting question from Michael Warren, who is, of course, one of the leading tech minds in Malaysia. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. And he's asked us, can you explain your business exit proposition for investors? Do you... Umar, do you want to mention some ideas there, as well as Jan? Do you both want to like share the burden on this question? What's going on with the exit strategies?
So maybe I can start first, then I'll pass it on to Jan. But I mean, for me, more of a general perspective, not specifically for Baloy, but based on our experience helping many different companies and projects raise funds over the last few years. For a company like Baloy, I guess what I can say is it's a good thing where there are many, or at least a few possibilities and options. Essentially, when a startup is growing very quickly, and in this case is profitable, and is in a sector that everybody knows is growing fast and the need is high, then it becomes much easier, to decide on the way forward, or to have a preference on the way forward that can give investors an exit. Is more or less, in a sense, internal preference or strategy, which Jan can share more about. Do they want to go IPO? Do they want to have try and do a trade sale, or do they want to raise funds and acquire others? There are many ways for a liquidity event to happen, which can give investors an exit. And I would say it's because of the traction and the momentum. That's usually the key factor. And in this case, the key factor is there. But then you have all the other things that we're talking about, right? About providing food and about the change in the business model. So maybe Jan, you can share specifically how are you going to make money for all of us investing in you.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got my checkbook right here, and if it's ready to go, I'm signing the check later. But tell us a bit more about that exit strategy.
Okay, so through Ethis, the equity crowdfunding platform that we've chosen, the one and only Sharia compliant ECF platform in Malaysia, we are offering now here is our ordinary shares, and we do provide dividends up to 15% per annum. And on top of that, there will be a redemption, within 3 years. So investor will be able to redeem back at the principal price. Not forgetting the 15% dividends per year. There's up to 3 years they enjoy. So that's the one of the options. And secondly, in fact, we are actually in the midst of our IPO preparation. We are targeting to be listed on Singapore capitalist market by Q4 2022. So based on our current and past achievement, so we have more than 1.5 for that, I'd say, and we have also started talking to our consultant and also start talking to the sponsor. And just for information, our current valuation done by IHS Market, an international valuation firm based in London, our current valuation is 100 million ringgit. So with this year outstanding performance, we believe that we'll be able to be listed on IPO in Singapore capitalist at a minimum valuation of 300 ringgit by Q4 2022 at a P ratio of 24.5. So that's basically two of the options where for the exit plan for the investors.
Okay, brilliant. Now I want to know a little bit more about the crowd platform and the equity. I've not used it before, but I'm interested to use it. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are in this similar position. How does it work? Maybe one, you can answer this. One, what do I do? Who do I give my money to? How do we invest? Do we get an account? Do we go to a bank? What works here? How does it work?
Yeah, thanks, Nordin. I think fundamentally, I'll touch on two things. One is actually the concept of crowdfunding. Secondly, is actually coming back to your question as to how. I guess crowdfunding here, with all of this confluence of technology and digitalization, what it does for the community, or rather, the rakyat or people like you and I, is that we are now able to do alternative financing or alternative investment. And this is done via online platforms. So if you look into it, Ethis, or rather Ethis Malaysia, is a fintech company. Obviously, with the equity crowdfunding play, as I mentioned earlier, we are somewhat governed or regulated by the Security Commission. So just to ensure there's no fraudulent activities, ensuring there's no spamming, cybersecurity issues, etc., etc. Now, if you're an investor, typically we compartmentalize investors into three categories. One being is a retail investors, meaning to say you're retail shopping. You're probably looking to maybe wanted to diversify your investment portfolio in a couple of thousand ringgits, up to 3,000, 5,000 on some of the campaigns. Secondly is what we consider as angel investors. Now, in Malaysia, angel investors, you can actually receive certain tax cuts or incentives or benefits. There's a certain requirement for you to become an angel investor. If you want to know more about that, you can go to MBAN, the Malaysian Business Angel Network. There's a certain criteria for you to even apply to become an angel investors. And the third portion is actually what we call the sophisticated, the institutional investors. And this could be the likes of PEs, VCs, and stuff like that. Now, coming back to your question, people like you and I, if you are looking to invest like a small amounts and try to diversify your investment portfolios, you can actually go to platforms such as Ethis, .co/my, for example, and you can see all the line campaigns that have gone through due diligence. And when we say due diligence for Ethis, we cover two parts. One is actually the compliance that imposed to us by Security Commission. Secondly, because we are a Sharia company, we do also Sharia due diligence as well for the companies that we're investing. So in this case, Baloy, for example, have gone through that type of rigor to make sure the compliancy from a governance, but also the Sharia portion. How you can actually invest? Yes, you can actually click the invest now button. We'll ask for some basic demographic questions for you. And this is not so much so about collecting data, but also what we do on investor due diligence. We call it the KYC, the know your customer. Very brief questions. Just make sure that you're not entangled into any fraud, bankruptcy, etc., that enables you to invest. So it's fairly straightforward. In fact, if none of you have gone through the platform, I encourage you to go through, in fact, our platform maybe, just to see what kind of businesses we have out there on the public campaign. Secondly is actually, how do you go through the process? What kind of considerations? You can actually see the pitch decks of the businesses, in this case, Baloy. You can actually download some of the data, what's their trajectory, exit plan, and what kind of dividends they're targeted to pay out investors in that sense. I would add on this part where it differs crowdfunding and investors, right? Or rather banks, for example. I think the power of crowd is something that can be harnessed through crowdfunding. For business owners like Mr. Yan, for example, when they go to crowdfunding through public campaign, it's not just about raising funds to scale their business. It actually provides certain level of validation to the businesses or to the product that they offer. So I always say, if you are able to impart your money to the businesses, meaning there's a certain amount of validation that goes into it, meaning to say, yes, the market needs your business. So that's some slight different views, how crowdfunding versus banks, because crowdfunding actually enable you to become, or rather use crowdfunding as a marketing campaign as well, for you to get more communities, more consumer, etc., etc.
Okay, cool. We've got a few other questions, but and we're going to come back to that in a second. But Brother Omar, when we talk about this crowdfunding and this exit strategies, what can you do differently for angel investors as opposed to the retail investors? Is there because a lot of people want to get on the ground level of it, of these things. How do we add value there, and how is Ethis adding value to these investment opportunities like Baloy?
Sure. So I think, of course, if you compare how a startup would typically treat or deal with, one very significant large VC, as compared to working with a pool of investors, angel investors, or even retail investors from crowdfunding, then it can be quite different. I think for angel investors and for crowdfunding, although crowdfunding, we internally and regulatory perspective, there are the retail, mass retail segment and the angel segment. But for fast growth companies and startups that raise more and more over time, individuals typically, I guess, are seen to be quite similar, whether you're a large angel or a retail. Yeah. So in general, the perspective that I see from startups and investors and platforms is that retail investors are considered in a sense similar to angel investors. Is that there are smaller amounts and larger numbers. From the jump from there to a VC, that's where there's some kind of gap. And I won't say anything bad about VCs, but there are VCs that are very ethical, very pro-entrepreneur. But there are also VCs that are very commercially driven, and the terms that they impose on those who want to take their money or who want to receive investment from them can be quite punitive over time if things don't go well, especially. Or can give the VC significant advantages or benefits over other investors. Yeah, because for the VC, it's for many VCs, the mindset tends to be all or nothing, right? Either you go super big, or to us, you're one of the majority that did not make it. Because for a VC investment, that's how they look at it, right? For many investments, they look for the few that go really, really big. Whereas for angel investors and for the crowd, they can definitely, through crowdfunding, spread it out through many different opportunities. And in fact, more and more, even for us, we're quite happy, alhamdulillah, that there are VCs and even PE firms who also want to spread out their capital through our platform. So why is this? What was the benefit of platforms like us? I guess the very main, one of the main key benefits is transparency and openness. Right? Everybody sees the same information. Everybody knows what's the deal, what are the risks, what are the benefits, what is the potential upside. Whether you're a VC, a super large angel, or a normal angel, or a small investor, everybody is a shareholder and everybody has similar or the same terms. So those terms are deemed to be fair because, in my view and in my experience, if there's one big investor that dictates terms to his benefit, typically there'll be some kind of negative trade-off with other investors who are smaller or having less influence in terms of size, right? So I think that's not right. Yeah, we should all have equal access to the benefits, as well as equally share on whatever downsides or risks there may be. So that's how crowdfunding democratizes these kind of investments.
Nice. Well said. Now, coming back to Baloy. Now, Jan, Aisha's asked a very important question. Of course, I know all your food is obviously halal because you're on a Sharia compliant platform. But what about these high value sectors of organic food, vegan food, and that health conscious area? Is that an area that you guys are looking to take advantage of that growth sector as well?
Oh yes, for long run, definitely these are the area that we are also looking into it. Okay, so but what we are carrying now is those that really benefits the B40 and M40 market. That's for their very essential product. Okay, so at this moment we are carrying up to 1,200 SKUs, and we hope that we can increase up to 1,800 SKUs. That might fulfilling not only the B40, M40, it might eventually for the T20 as well as overall.
Okay, nice. Because one of the things that we've seen in Malaysia at the very beginning of the MCO was this massive amount of food, and I'm thinking of Cameron Highlands here. There was that case of, all that food was stuck somewhere, and it wasn't moving to the people who needed to get it. And then you've got this other side of the story where there's hungry people. How does your platform and how does your business start to deal with that scarcity problem? And what technology are you using to make sure that you guys stay competitive?
Okay, just for information, our system is so advanced that we trace our every single outlet's inventory from time to time. So when it reaches the lower triggering, PO will be generated automatically to the manufacturer. So by receiving the PO, manufacturer will deliver to their distribution center, and from there it will distribute it out to all our outlets. So we ensure that our stocks are always ready. Okay? And we do to actually fulfill the needs. Even on during the MCO or lockdown, probably a lot will be facing a shortage, but for us, we have no problem at all, thanks to this advanced system we have developed. Okay? And not only that, we are also gathering big data, not only for our own marketing or supplies purposes, we are also sharing this big data with our manufacturer, whereby they can plan or forecast for the production in a more effective manner, and also contributing to the cost reduction as a long term.
So let's talk about the data, because I get excited about data, and we've just done a data study on some of the B40 in Klang Valley, and we've seen the white flag movement and this massive push to get food to people who need it quickly. Now, my concern is a lot of people go out and buy a lot of food from all the way at the end of the retail. And, there's been a lot of markup all the way through there. Is it possible, and should it be, that a lot of this stuff goes through your system and then just gets delivered directly to the people who need it? And instead of, maybe we still spend 100 ringgit or 1,000 ringgit helping this group of people, but they get more food. Is that possible?
Yes, definitely. Just share with you that we do also have our food bank in every of our outlets. Yeah, so we are opening to any of the customers of us, or probably the supplier or manufacturer, to contributing to the food bank. So we have always ready food for those that in needs, and we can even, the food bank is always ready, reaching out to our customers or those that need. They can just, drop by, walk in any of our outlets to get those foods.
Okay, brilliant. And not only can people invest, so they can also contribute to the food bank, and I think that's an excellent. An excellent CSR and community initiative. Now, Zuleika has just asked us a question. In your opinion, what does the future hold for food retail industry as technology continues to advance? What do you see as the future of the food industry?
Okay, well, I would say with the help of the latest technology, as I mentioned, on the e-commerce latest technology, as well as AI and capability and big data, this will definitely help out to ease on all the parties from our side, our CSR responsibility, as well as to the manufacturer. And I foresee that this will reduce the wastage a lot, and also come out with a more effective costing, for all the parties. Okay, so through our system, or probably in the future, we hope that more and more players utilize the latest technology in the food industry or grocery industry. We can actually bring benefits to all the people, especially the lower income, B40 and M40, in terms of pricing, in terms of the supply, it's always sufficient, and also reaching out from the manufacturer direct to the end user, reducing all the costing, for example, for logistics and so on. That will definitely help out, as an overall supply chain, and also the new ecosystem they would like to introduce to the market.
Brilliant. And I think you've touched on a very important word there, this new ecosystem, and how the market is more data driven, is reducing waste. And of course, I mean, this is going to add to Malaysia's self-sufficiency levels. And of course, Malaysia wants to be a halal hub, and for to be a halal hub, first you must be strong yourself. So I think this is one of the first initiatives I've seen for a long time that it is really starting to build some capacity in the domestic market, which is wonderful to see. Now, before we close, gentlemen, I want to give you one last bite of the cherry, and allow just to give us the last piece of advice for potential investors, potential customers as well, and how are you seeing this market change? How are you seeing the retail industry? And we'll start with you, Umar, because you got to go first last time as well.
Sure. Well,
that's not Omar. Yes, Mark.
All right. Yeah. So
yes,
as you can see, technology has really disrupted almost everything, almost all the supply chains, especially almost all value chains, especially when it comes to consumers, especially when there are a lot of middlemen in between that take up a lot of costs or add a lot of friction or add a lot of resources, right? So from fintech for finance all the way to groceries and food, there are different levels of disruption, and with the COVID, that the speed and the extent of change has really skyrocketed. So I think this is not just a trend; it's actually, I guess, the cliche word is the new normal. Why should there be 3-4 layers of wholesalers and distributors before my can of sardines reaches me or my bread reaches me, right? Why can't I get it directly from platforms like Baloy? So I believe this is a fundamental permanent change, and we'll only see it accelerate further. It's great that we're very happy to have a company like Baloy with us to fundraise, given that they have worked out a lot of things and found sweet spots that work. And that's what startups are all about, going out to market and figuring out on testing different things until we find what works, and then pushing that and continuing to innovate. So I think that's what we see in Baloy, which attracted us to work with them for their fundraise. And back to your question, yeah, I think it's going to change globally. It is really changing, and the pace of change will only accelerate. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you, Umar, and I really appreciate that. Now, we're going to go over to you also. Shafiqa Effa has asked a question: what's the minimum amount we can invest? I also was thinking about this earlier. What is the minimum amount that retail investors can put into this idea? And the other one, okay, Michael's got another question. Why exit IPO and Catalyst and not ACE? Either okay, just curious. So we got to answer these two questions. Okay, over to you, one, and we'll get to the IPO for Michael right after that.
Yeah, I think interesting question. I think for Baloy, Mr. Yan can mention. Apologies, I can't remember on top of my head what is the minimum amount. I think it was 5,000 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, 5,000. Yeah. But typically, if you go to the crowdfunding platform, the deal structurings or rather the commercial arrangement lies in the hand of the business owner, ranging from as minimum as 1,000 and up to in the case of Mr. Yan 5,000. You can see the specific arrangement or commercial terms on the campaign itself. There's a bit more information there with regards to if you want to invest. I think as a platform as best as we can do, and this is a stigma or perception. I think we when you do investment, there's always this element of risk and rewards, and that is as cognizant as we are as a recognized market operator in Malaysia. We as best as we can try to disclose as many not just say data but information to investors like you and I. Our aim is not really to make sure you secure 100% investment, but rather to facilitate your decision-making process. Because if VCs and NPEs, usually the investors can actually pitch to them But in platforms such as us, or rather in the crowdfunding platform, we can only disclose as much as we can so that you can make informed decision. Do you want me to answer the IPO question?
Yeah, I have a bite at it, and also, Mr. Yan, you've got to also talk about the IPO thing.
Yeah.
You know, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael knows what he's talking about, so we've got to give him his full due. You know.
Yeah, I'll probably don't want to outshine Mr. Yan on this one, but I can see from a crowdfunding platform operator, a lot of MSME or SME who does crowdfunding at this point of time is in a view of pre-IPO. There has been an announcement by the previous Prime Minister of Malaysia in March 2021. The ceiling amount of crowdfunding for equity, you can do up to 20 million ringgit Malaysia. That hasn't been enforced yet. Currently, the Security Commission have given a ceiling of 10 million. But what I see, if the 20 million ringgit is going to be enforced, a lot of higher or larger medium enterprises will use crowdfunding platform as a pre-IPO, meaning to say they get the valuation higher before they go to initial public offerings. But yeah, maybe Mr. Yan can speak specifically for Baloy on this one.
Okay, sure. Over to you, Mr. Yan. Tell us why Singapore and not the ACE.
Okay, in fact, Baloy is not only targeting on Malaysian market, we are targeting on the whole ASEAN region market. That's aims of 700 million of population. So that's our ultimate goal. Reason why we choose Singapore is we are targeting to, expose to more international institutional and as well as looking up for our cornerstone investors. So that's the reason why that we choose Singapore as a regional by nature.
Okay, but IPO is still your I would say medium term goal for the corporation.
Yes. So in fact, 2022 IPO in Singapore Catalyst is only our first step. Our ultimate goal is to list it by 2025 at either Hong Kong Stock Exchange or Nasdaq. That's our aim to become the next unicorn from Malaysia.
Okay, nice. Okay, with that, gentlemen, I wanted to thank you all for joining us today. I think it's been a very informative session. It's been a very fruitful discussion, and thank you also for all the people who have joined in and commented, and of course, especially to Michael Warren, who's a regular viewer of the show, but also one of our leading tech minds in the country. It's always an honor to get questions from him. And thank you very much, Yan, Wan, and Umar. It's you guys are making a great team. I'm going to get you on another show when we actually get to have real lunch. Because this is a working lunch with Nordin. And as promised to all my guests who have been joining me virtually for the last few months, once we're effectively out and about and in a safe way, we'll probably hold a big lunch and enjoy a good networking session together. So on that note, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again next week on a working lunch with Nordin.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nordin.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks.